The prison sat on the edge of Ashwood County, a monolithic slab of concrete and rusted wire cutting into the fog-drenched hills. Locals called it the Tomb, a place where men vanished into silence, and only their shadows ever left. Guards swore they could hear the wind rattle through empty cells like whispers of those who died behind the walls. That morning, during roll call, a prisoner's name was shouted into the cold air, but no voice answered back. Chains clinked. A hush fell, and before anyone understood how, one man was gone. If you're drawn into stories like this, consider following along. These tales are crafted slowly, with care, and meant to linger long after the last line. The morning bell split the silence like an axe through wood. Metal doors slammed, chains shuffled, and boots echoed in rhythm along the cracked linoleum corridors. Sergeant Paul Harker stood at the head of Cell Block C, his breath clouding in the damp October air. He had worked these corridors for 22 years and carried the look of a man who hadn't slept a full night in just as long. His mustache was graying, his hands swollen from arthritis, but his eyes still cut sharp when he counted heads. 211, he barked. Here, 212. Here. The cadence rolled steady, the sound of voices following numbers like a metronome. 217. Silence. Harker lifted his eyes from the clipboard. In the cage of iron bars, the bunk was neatly made. Pillow pressed flat, blanket folded. Nothing disturbed. 217, he repeated louder. A few prisoners shifted on their feet, exchanging small, nervous glances. Some smirked, as if enjoying the show. Others avoided eye contact altogether. Name, Harker muttered under his breath, scanning the list. Caleb Maddox. The name meant something. Maddox wasn't the loudest or most dangerous man in the block. He was quiet, almost too quiet, which made him hard to read. A man who listened more than he spoke. A man who, Harker always thought, was waiting for something. He turned to Officer Lena Vega, the rookie beside him. She was 30, tough in posture, but still wearing the freshness of someone who hadn't yet built her wall against the job. Check the showers. Kitchen detail, too. Maybe he slipped. Vega nodded and moved briskly, boots clapping the floor. But Harker's gut had already tightened. Maddox wasn't the type to slip anywhere. By mid-morning, the block was in lockdown. Sirens blared. Steel doors clamped shut, and the sound of guards shouting orders rolled through the prison like thunder. At the central command post, Warden Eli Broderick hunched over the monitors. His face was carved into deep lines, jaw clenched as he scrolled through camera feeds. Hallways, the yard, laundry, infirmary. No Maddox, just walls and shadows. You're telling me a man disappeared inside my prison? Broderick's voice cracked across the room. No, sir, Harker replied. He stood stiff, clipboard still in hand like a shield. I'm telling you the cell's empty and we haven't found him. Broderick slammed a fist against the console. Empty is an answer. Find him. The K-9 unit arrived before noon. Rocco was a German shepherd, lean and dark, with a scar running across his muzzle from a fight years back. He padded into the block with the gravity of a soldier, his handler, Corporal Darren Cole, trailing the leash. Cole gave a sharp command. Rocco lowered his snout, sniffing along the frame of Maddox's cell. The dog's breathing grew heavy, nostrils flaring, claws scratching faintly against concrete. Then his head jerked toward the corridor. He's got something, Cole murmured, tightening the lead. The guards followed as Rocco pulled through the halls, weaving past locked doors and grimy windows. The dog's body grew tense, ears flat, tail stiff. He wasn't following a simple trail. He was hunting. They crossed the kitchen, where pots still steamed with thin soup, through the laundry, where heat from the dryers made sweat bead on the guards' necks, past the showers, where mold crept green across cracked tiles. And then Rocco stopped. A guttural growl ripped through the block. He pawed furiously at a section of wall in the old East Wing, the place everyone in the prison whispered about but never checked. Paint peeled in flakes. Water stains like dark veins ran down the concrete. The air smelled damp, like rot and rust. No! Harker muttered under his breath. Vega glanced at him. What is this place? The old storage tunnels, Harker said, eyes hard. Sealed off after the flood 20 years ago. Supposedly. Rocco barked, sharp and insistent, as if mocking the word supposedly. Cole looked at the warden. He's on it. You wanted to pull him back. Broderick's face drained pale. For a moment, silence wrapped the group. Even the hum of the lights seemed to dim. No! Broderick said finally. His voice was low, unwilling. Open it. Harker hesitated. His gut twisted with a warning he couldn't voice. But orders were orders. He stepped forward, hand trembling as he unlatched the rusted padlock hanging from the chain gate. The metal screeched as it broke open. Cold air, thick with the smell of earth and something else, something sharp metallic, spilled into the corridor. Rocco lunged forward, snarling. The guards exchanged glances. Some shifted their rifles higher. Vega swallowed hard. No one wanted to be the first to step inside, but the dog already had, and what he dragged them toward would tear apart every certainty they thought they had about the tomb. The sound of Rocco's nails clicking against the wet floor echoed into the darkness as he pulled Cole deeper into the forgotten wing. The beam of Vega's flashlight cut through dust and shadows, revealing walls blackened with mildew and streaked with rust. The tunnels hadn't been used in decades. Floodwaters had ruined the lower levels, and the administration sealed them rather than pay for repairs. But the smell here wasn't just mold and rot. It was sharper, like iron and decay. Christ, Vega muttered, pulling her jacket closer. Smells like blood. Harker said nothing. His face looked carved from stone, but his jaw clenched tighter with each step. Broderick trailed behind, eyes darting to every shadow. He was a warden who commanded authority in open rooms and well-lit corridors, but here in the tunnels, he looked small, out of place. Rocco stopped suddenly. His ears twitched, then he let out a low, guttural growl. Cole tightened the leash. The beam of Vega's light swung forward and landed on a door. It was metal, dented, half-rusted shut. Across its face were gouges, long scratches as if something, or someone, had clawed from the inside. Storage, my ass, Vega whispered. Broderick's voice was hoarse. Open it. Cole braced his shoulder against the corroded handle, metal shrieking in protest until it finally gave. The door yawned open with a moan, revealing a room swallowed in shadow. Inside, the air was colder, heavier. Rocco stepped forward, nose pressed low to the ground, tail rigid. The flashlight beam trembled as Vega lifted it higher. The room stretched longer than expected, the ceiling dripping water into shallow puddles. And then the light caught something. Harker exhaled sharply. It was a chair. No, not just a chair. Restraints bolted to its arms and legs. Rust and something darker stained the leather straps. A metal tray sat beside it. Surgical instruments scattered across its surface. Some were broken. Others looked sharpened to crude points. What the hell? Vega whispered. Broderick stepped in, his breath fogging. His voice cracked in the stale air. This wasn't here when we sealed the wing. Cole knelt by the chair, frowning at the floor. Not old, he said, pointing at a trail of dark smears leading deeper into shadows. Some of this is fresh. The room stretched beyond what they could see. The light revealed another door at the far end, heavy and bolted shut. Rocco barked sharply at it, the sound ricocheting off the walls like gunfire. No, Harker said, his voice low, almost pleading. Everyone turned toward him. He avoided their eyes, staring instead at the stains on the straps. Some things are sealed for a reason. Broderick's face tightened. You know something. Silence. Harker, Broderick pressed, stepping closer. If you've been keeping... But his words cut off at the metallic slam of the far door. It hadn't opened. It had slammed shut from the inside. The sound froze the air in their lungs. Vega's light jittered, her knuckles white around the flashlight. Cole raised the sidearm instinctively. Someone's in there. Impossible, Broderick hissed, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Rocco snarled, for bristling as he lunged at the bolted door. He barked again, violent, insistent. Harker finally spoke, his voice hollow. We shouldn't be down here. But Broderick ignored him. Open it. Cole hesitated. Sir, if it's locked from the inside. Then someone has a key. They wrestled the bolts loose, each clank echoing like a hammer in their skulls. The final latch gave with a screech. Cole shoved the door, but it barely budged. Something heavy pressed against it from the other side. With Harker's help, they forced it open a crack. Cold air rushed out, sharper now, like old copper and damp stone. Vega angled her light through the gap. Her breath caught. Oh my God! The room beyond wasn't empty. Dozens of objects lined the walls, hanging from nails and hooks. Prison uniforms, torn and rotted, shackles dangling loose. Photographs, black and white, curling with age, pinned crookedly across the bricks. Faces of prisoners, some crossed out with thick black ink. And at the center of the room, chained upright against the wall, was a figure, barefoot, drenched in sweat, his face hidden in shadow. Rocco growled, snapping teeth at the crack of the door. Cole shoved harder. The weight holding the door finally gave, and the metal swung wide. The figure lifted its head. Eyes glinted in the flashlight beam. Sunken, wild but alive. Caleb Maddox, Harker whispered. The missing prisoner was there, but not as they'd expected. His arms were raw from chains, his skin pale from confinement. Vega lowered her weapon, breath shaking. He's been here the whole time? Maddox licked cracked lips, voice rasping like sandpaper. You don't understand. Broderick stepped forward. Who put you here? Maddox's laugh was dry, broken. You really don't know? Rocco barked furiously, lunging at his leash. Cole struggled to restrain him. Maddox's eyes flicked the dog, then back to the guards. He knows. The animal smells it. The walls remember. Enough riddles, Broderick snapped, anger masking his unease. Tell me who chained you here. Maddox's gaze turned cold, piercing. His words fell like knives. Ask your sergeant. All eyes swung to Harker. His face betrayed nothing, but his hand twitched at his side. Vega's brow furrowed. Sarge, what's he talking about? Harker exhaled slowly, as though carrying a weight for too long. His voice came rough, reluctant. Those tunnels, they were never storage. They were for discipline. Years back, before the floods. Before you, Vega. Before Cole. Before half of you. Broderick's eyes narrowed. You told me we sealed them because of the flood. Harker's jaw tightened. That was the official story. Vega stepped closer, her voice trembling. Are you saying you knew this was here? That chair, those photos? Harker's silence was louder than any admission. Broderick's face flushed with rage. You hid this from me? From the state? Do you have any idea what this means? But Maddox's voice cut through, sharp, urgent. You're wasting time. Everyone turned back to him. His chains rattled as he leaned forward, eyes blazing with a strange intensity. They'll come back, Maddox said. The ones who put me here. And you won't stop them, because they're not just guards, not just prisoners. They're something else. They've been here longer than the walls. Cole swore under his breath. He's cracked. But Vega couldn't look away from Maddox's eyes. There was terror there, yes, but also certainty. And then came the sound. Distant, low, echoing from deeper in the tunnels. A shuffle, then another, like footsteps. Rocco froze, ears stiff, teeth bared at the darkness. The hair on Vega's arms rose. Someone else is down here, she whispered. The lights above flickered once, then again, and the sound of footsteps drew closer. The footsteps were deliberate, slow, wet against the stone floor, as though dragging through puddles. Every guard lifted their weapon. Vega's hand trembled slightly, the flashlight beam jittering against the mildew-stained walls. Cole tightened his grip on Rocco's leash, but the shepherd strained forward, hackles raised, teeth flashing in the half-light. Maddox pressed himself back against the chains. His voice came in a hoarse whisper. Too late. You opened the door. The sound grew closer. Not one set of footsteps. Several. The first figure appeared in the doorway. A man in a guard's uniform, though aged and blackened by time. His badge bore no name, no number, just a smear of rust. His skin was pale, almost waxen, eyes sunken deep in shadow. Behind him came another, and another, all dressed the same, half prisoner, half guard, faces hollow, expressions unreadable. They fill the doorway in silence, their breathing ragged, like air passing through broken pipes. Vega swallowed hard. Who the hell are they? Maddox's chains rattled as he tugged, panic in his voice. They don't belong to time. They were here before me, before all of us. Shut up, Broderick barked, though his own voice cracked. He aimed his pistol at the figures. Back off, or I'll shoot. But the figures didn't flinch. They stepped forward, in unison, their boots dragging on the stone. Rocco lunged, snarling, barking with primal fury. Cole nearly lost hold of the leash. The sound bounced down the tunnels like a warning siren, but the figures only kept moving. Harker stepped forward suddenly, lowering his weapon. His face looked older than ever, guilt carved deep in his features. Stop, he said, his voice breaking. It's me you want. The others turned toward him, stunned. Harker, Vega whispered. What are you doing? He didn't answer her. His eyes stayed locked on the approaching figures. I kept a secret. I carried it all these years. But I can't bury it anymore. Broderick's face twisted with rage. What are you talking about? Harker's jaw clenched. He finally turned to the warden. You think these tunnels were just for discipline? His voice dripped with bitterness. It was more than that. Experiments. Broken men turned into warnings. Guards who disappeared because they saw too much. They kept them down here. Fed them just enough to survive. Half men, half shadows. Vega shook her head, unable to process. You knew? You let this happen? Harker's voice cracked. I was young. They told us it was necessary, that it kept the prison under control. By the time I realized the truth, I was part of it. Broderick raised his weapon at Harker. You son of a bitch. You betrayed this prison. You betrayed me. But before another word could pass, the figures surged forward. Chaos exploded. Gunfire erupted in the tunnels, deafening, muzzle flashes splitting the dark. Vega fired blindly, bullets sparking off stone. Cole dragged Rocco back, but the shepherd tore free, hurling himself at the nearest figure with a furious snarl. The creature collapsed under the dog's weight, but it didn't scream. It didn't bleed. It only clawed upward with hands that felt too strong, too cold. Cole shot it twice in the chest. Nothing. The thing shuddered but kept moving. Fall back! Vega shouted. They stumbled toward the exit, but Maddox's chains rattled violently. Don't leave me, he screamed. You can't leave me with them. Harker froze. His eyes locked on Maddox, raw, haunted. Then he lunged forward, fumbling with the locks, freeing the prisoner in frenzy. Maddox collapsed to his knees, then shoved Harker hard against the wall, spitting blood and fury. You left me here. Maddox roared. All these years you knew and you left me. Harker's voice cracked. I couldn't save you. But Maddox's fist slammed into him, breaking his lip. You didn't even try. The figures closed in, their movements jerky, mechanical, yet unstoppable. Broderick fired until his gun clicked empty. Sweat poured down his face. What are they? He shouted, but no answer came. Vega grabbed his arm. We have to move. Cole hauled Maddox up by the collar. On your feet, now. The group pushed through the tunnels, boots splashing through water, hearts pounding in sync with the dogs barking. The walls seemed to close in, the ceiling dripping steadily, as though the prison itself was breathing. Behind them, the footsteps didn't fade. They multiplied. They burst into the first chamber, the one with the chair. The flashlight beam caught the leather straps, slick with rot. Vega gagged at the sight. This way! Harker shouted, pointing to a stairwell at the far side. His voice carried authority again, though his face was pale with shame. But Broderick shoved him back. No, you're not leading us anywhere. Not after this. You'll die if you go blind, Harker snapped. I know the way out. None of you do. Vega raised her weapon, trembling. Tell us why we should trust you. Harker looked at her, then down at his hands. They shook. Because I'm already damned. You still have a chance. The figures entered the chamber. Dozens now. Crowding the doorways, they're breathing a collective wrath that filled the room. Rocco stood his ground, snarling, his body vibrating with fury. Cole gripped the leash, jaw tight. We don't have a choice. Vega's flashlight trembled over the crowd. Her eyes met Harker's. Lead us, she said. Broderick's face twisted with rage. You'll regret this. But there was no time. They sprinted for the stairwell, Rocco barking violently as Cole dragged him back. The figures followed, pouring in like water through cracks. Up the stairs, through crumbling corridors, past rusted gates that hadn't been touched in decades. Harker pushed forward with desperate precision, navigating twists and corners, his voice hoarse from shouting directions. Left here. Keep low. Bullets flew when the figures got too close, but nothing slowed them for long. Finally, daylight. They burst through a rusted grate at the far edge of the prison yard. The cold October air hit their faces like a slap. Vega collapsed to her knees, gasping. Cole dragged Rocco back. Blood streaked across the shepherd's muzzle. Maddox leaned against the fence, eyes wild, chest heaving. Broderick stumbled last, face pale, drenched in sweat. The figures did not follow. They stood just inside the grate, silent, unmoving, their hollow eyes watching as the survivors staggered into the open. One by one, they faded back into the shadows, swallowed by the prison's walls. Silence fell. The prison loomed behind them, black against the fog. Its walls were quiet again, but every brick seemed to hold a whisper. Broderick turned on Harker, shoving him hard against the fence. You're finished. The state will hear everything. I'll see you rot in the same hell you created. Harker didn't resist. His eyes were tired, resigned. Do what you have to. Just make sure the tunnels are sealed for good this time. Vega's voice shook. After what we saw, you think sealing them will stop it? Harker looked at her, something breaking in his expression. No, but it'll slow it down. Later, after the sirens and backup arrived, after Broderick stormed off with threats of tribunals and investigations, Vega found herself sitting alone by the outer fence. Rocco lay at her feet, chest rising and falling, the faint rumble of growl still in his throat as though he dreamed of the shadows. Cole smoked nearby, silent, eyes hollow. Maddox had been taken to infirmary. No one knew what would happen to him now. Vega stared at the prison, its towers barely visible in the fog. She thought of the faces in the tunnels, of the chair, of Harker's voice, raw with guilt. Her radio crackled with chatter, but she switched it off. The silence felt heavier, but truer. She whispered to herself, though no one was near enough to hear. They'll come back. Rocco's ears twitched, and he pressed his head against her knee. The prison loomed, ancient and unbroken, holding its secrets like a tomb. And though the night was quiet, Vega knew the walls were listening.